Picture for yourselves, if you would, the scene that is in the gospel today. The scene is that Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist and went away to a deserted place, probably to grieve. Who wouldn't? And in that deserted place, they found out where he was, and 5,000 men, plus all the women and children, came and gathered around him on a grassy hillside. And they brought to him their sick, and they're lame, they're crippled. They brought to them those things. They were in a deserted place, and they were a deserted people who felt that life had passed them by. Because they were the people with whom Jesus hung out. They were the poor, the sick, the known sinners, the outcasts, those who lived on the margin of society. And they were there because they realized in Jesus someone who had something to offer the deeper hungers, the deeper needs of their lives. Why else would they have stayed in such an out-of-way place for so long without even worrying about food? Because they were captivated by this man, Jesus. And in that spot, what happened was that they were fed. Life had passed them by, they thought, but Jesus did not. He spoke to them the good news of God's love and God's presence. He fed them with bread, so much so that they were full, and it says satisfied. But we can well say that their bellies were not only satisfied, so were their hearts and their souls. That is how Jesus treats with those, because as you see, he came out of his own grief and understanding some more about the difficulties, the desert part of life. He had more compassion for the people who were around him. And I suggest that it is true that every one of us have to go through some desert times in our lives. Would you agree with me? Okay, no hesitation there. We have to go through some desert times in our lives where we are the ones who are crippled. We are the ones who are grieving. We are the ones who feel we have no power in life and that life just passes us by. We're distressed. We're imperiled. Somehow maybe we feel persecuted, alone, isolated for some reason, grieving. And what will satisfy us in those places? A big, flat, new TV, big, flat screen, new TV. That'll do it, right? Right? Or you buy a new car, and you always feel good in a new car, don't you? That takes care of it. That's all you got to do. Or let's just eat more. Or buy more clothes. Then we'll feel better. Does that work? I've tried one or two of those, I tell you. I know, it doesn't work. So when we feel like that kind of a deserted place, Christ does not pass us by either. Instead, what he does, he stops and he looks at us, takes pity on us. He knows what it's like. He's been there. And he does something to reach out and touch us. Oftentimes it's through his word. In our own prayer and in our own scripture, sometimes it's at Mass. Maybe something the preacher says has some time or another for some reason touches us, and it's like, oh, it's what I hear. And maybe it's when we come and receive the very presence, the body and blood of Christ from this table, and we say, oh, I'm not alone. He still knows I'm here. Maybe it looks like that. And maybe it's like something else, when he sends somebody else out to be his hands and his feet, his heart, his eyes and his ears. For example, we have extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist here who are trained to go out to people who, in our parish, who are somehow isolated in their homes for whatever reason. Some are crippled. Some are just injured and are trying to recover. Some are so sick they just can't get out. Some are dying. Somehow, for whatever reason, they're homebound. And our folks are trained to go into their houses to bring Jesus to him, to bring Jesus to them in the Eucharist and in their own body. To sit there and to listen to him. And if you've ever been sick and isolated in your home, and somebody comes to visit, even for a half hour, or maybe better, an hour, my experience is, it just makes my day. I'm not forgotten. The community, I'm still part of it. God hasn't forgotten me, neither has this person. And they brought me Jesus. What a blessing. And I know that when I was training as in the seminary, I spent a whole summer in a clinical pastoral experience being trained how to do pastoral ministry in the hospital. And we had a week or two of kind of introductory kind of stuff, and they say, okay, hit the floors. Their little coat on that says chaplain in training. And so, okay, here I go. I walk into it's like a room of a patient who's kind of suffering, and what do I say? How's it going? What do I say? I was 24. I had 1 year of theology, graduate theology behind me. I didn't know enough theology to go into those rooms. Now, if you were the one lying in that bed, would you care how much theology I had? What would you be looking for? You'd be looking for contact. Does this person see me as a person, not as a patient? Well, they're willing to listen to what I have to say, what I'm suffering, what I'm most worried about. And you know what? Sometimes it's not about the disease or the injury. It's something else deeper in their hearts. What they want is someone to be there, to treat them not as a patient, but as a person. And just to listen. And to listen in faith and respond out of that faith, rather than spouting some theology. They want that human, heart-to-heart contact. And, they might even, if you see them more than once, they might even want somebody to enjoy their presence. Crack a joke. Make them laugh. Laugh together. That's what they want. Want to be fed. Or I read a story about a nurse who worked in a terminal ward where, where a lot of people were died, and she loved it. And she had she had night hours, and she loved that because you're not quite so busy at night. And it gave her the opportunity when she could steal some time to go into the room of someone who was dying and to sit by their bed and to be with them. Sometimes she'd hold their hand. Sometimes she prayed to herself, or if they wanted to pray with them. And she says this. She says it's a privileged place to be with someone as he or she lets go of life. I hope my presence can help for those who are afraid to die. I pray and try to calm their fears, stroking their forehead. At this moment in the dying person's life, what else is wanted or needed? What about all the things we saved up to buy? All our ambitions, professional achievements, all our stuff. What good are they at this moment? I offer what will satisfy my presence and give a strength that no other thing can. My calming presence. A person of faith being there for the other. It may feel like just 5 loaves and 2 fish, the presence of the powerful force of death. But my prayer is a reminder that someone else is there, that God is there, multiplying the offerings of a disciple so that they are more than enough. She's had the experience that I have, and maybe you have. You walk in to see somebody, to be with somebody with what we think is so little, and Jesus supplies the rest. Sometimes the words, sometimes our own tears with them, sometimes the very thing that they need to nourish their hearts and nourish what they are so longing for and so hungry for. We offer our 2 loaves and 2 fishes and 5 loaves, our little. God supplies the rest. Jesus comes to us to feed our hungers, to let us know that we are not forgotten, that life hasn't passed us by. He comes to strengthen us to live, and he calls us to do the same for our brothers and sisters.